Hey, what's going on? My name is Bitcoin Benito. You're now watching the greatest show that has ever happened. Today, I'm here with a very, very special guest, Michael Sartain. He is a captain in the Air Force. He is also a founder of Men of Action, which is a networking group. And he's also the host of many international bikini competitions. In fact, I'm going to allow him to introduce himself. I kind of halfway did it for you. Go ahead, take the floor.
What's going on, man? My name is Michael. I'm a cat dilf. I rescue cats. I have a very, very offensive podcast that seems to make a lot of people angry. And I host, like you said before, I host some pageants, but I also have the Men of Action mentoring program where I try to teach people about leadership, networking, and how to use social media to grow their level of status so they can get a better job, so they can date a more beautiful woman, so they can do a lot of different stuff like that. So that's basically what I've been doing. I've been teaching for like the last 14 years, and I've been hosting these events. I don't just host pageants. I also host charity events, influencer charity events where we try to raise money for animal rescue, homeless children, domestic abuse, troops overseas. We have a breast cancer awareness that's going to come up October 15th. And I invite a bunch of influencers to come out there and help us raise money for that. And then I teach my clients how to do something similar, how to use charity events, pageants, list parties, theme parties, container events, conventions, how to use them as ways to network in order to level up their life.
Okay, awesome. And so this is a cryptocurrency channel, everything like that.
Yeah.
I do have a slight gripe. Anytime you do talk about crypto, you always say crypto scammers or NFT, or things like that. Well, I do admit that there are people that scam people multiple times.
Yeah. The problem is that those people are the top of the funnel. The problem is when it's Logan Paul, who's more famous than anyone else in the space, then what happens is that, the problem is like there's room in this space to be legitimate because there are so many scammers. And because this is an unregulated market. I come from listed equities. I used to be a quantitative analyst. When you go to like regulated, listed equities, in that place, there's certain things you're allowed to say, and there's certain things you're not allowed to say. And those things do not apply to cryptocurrency. And they certainly don't apply on Twitter. One of the things what you were going to ask before about using social media in the crypto space is one of the reasons why the crypto space is so much bigger on Twitter than it is on Instagram, is that on Instagram, people are generally trying to show some level of status. They're either girls are trying to show how pretty they are, guys are trying to show how, guys are on there trying to pick up girls, or people are trying to show cool cars or, cool tricks or, skateboarding tricks or BMX tricks or bikinis or just whatever. But the things they're trying to show on there, even cute animals, they're trying to show levels of status. They're trying to show levels of relevancy, levels of competency, and they're trying to get other people to watch. They're all trying to go viral, right? So on YouTube, what you'll notice, on Instagram, what you'll notice is it's less an anonymity. People are a lot nicer on Instagram. If you guys have ever had an Instagram following and a Twitter following at the same time, you'll notice on Instagram, people will not call you horrible fucking names on Instagram, but on Twitter, because of the anonymity, people are not on Twitter. You're not out on Twitter trying to pick up women. Because of that, people are much more likely to call themselves, Bitcoin Jesus 68472. And then it's their avatar is like a picture of Andrew Tate or Elon Musk or something like that. And it's like they're anonymous. And so because they're anonymous, they have these Twitter muscles and they feel like, they can talk a lot of trash. And so because of that type of environment kind of festers in the Twitter space where it doesn't so much on Instagram. And YouTube is YouTube and TikTok very similar to Twitter. Again, so what does that mean? That means that what happens is in the Twitter space, where a lot of people who are not into that techno, not deep into the Bitcoin space, into the blockchain space, they're not being informed about it, and their only exposure to those people is Logan Paul. Their only exposure to those people is Sam Bankman-Fried. Their only exposure to those people is like one scam after another, one FT. It's those apes. It's whatever. It's stuff like that. And even when you listen to Tai Lopez when he sold his crypto course, he was skeptical in the course, talking about, hey man, I don't know if all this stuff is going to work. And so I think the best way to approach this whole industry is to understand you can make a lot of money, and there is a lot of skepticism in it, right? It's very much, if people are willing to do the work and willing to do the study and then willing to actually make the claims that, hey, just to let you know, you may lose money by doing this, then those people I think are pretty, worthwhile to listen to. But there's just so many people who aren't doing that. Hey, what again, I'm bringing him up again. Logan Paul said he was going to pay back his investors. He did not do that. And he easily could have. I mean, we're talking $6, maybe $12 million. That's a rounding error for Logan Paul. He makes more than that in a fight.
Something like that.
Huh?
Isn't he worth like $300 million?
I don't know what he is, but what I know is that it's absurd for him to be going through something like this and just sort of perpetuating. One of the problems, Benito, is that like, if I'm a person who's studying finance my whole life, and then all of a sudden I have a burnout cousin who just smokes a bunch of blunts and comes back, he's like, yo, bro, gotta buy Bitcoin right now. Let's say this is like 2009. And so, my burnout cousin ends up buying Bitcoin and makes a fucking ton of money. And he's driving around in like a new Mercedes. Like in my mind, I'm like, this is the dumbest shit I've ever heard of in my life. This guy did no work. And all of a sudden he like 10x his money. Like, what is going on here? It just feels like a scam. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. I think one of the biggest problems that crypto, okay, look, I should have started off by saying this. I think blockchain is the future. I think cryptocurrency overall is the future. I think decentralized finance is the future. Please understand. I want to say that in the beginning, because people think I'm really hard on crypto. It's not that I'm hard on crypto. It's like having a son. Benito, it's like having a son, Ben, who's like 6'9" with a 40-inch vertical who doesn't want to play basketball. It's like very disappointing. That's what that's what the crypto space is to me. It's very disappointing. Like I want better from it, and I ask more from it. I want more. I want it to deliver more for me. And what's happened instead is a bunch of uneducated pitch men who are, renting Lamborghinis and have fake watches. And there's a Lambo index, and there's just like, it was just very clear that the wrong people were getting their hands on this and pitching it quicker because it was unregulated. And you'll notice if you go back and watch the people who were pitching binary options and Forex, those people quickly rotated into cryptocurrency, and they had no experience with which to even make those claims. And so it's just it was the right message, but the wrong people were giving it. And the other part that I thought was really funny was the message, the promises that were being made back in the early days when, let's just say when Bitcoin got up to like 10K, 20K, the messages that were made, hey, just to let you know, this is a flight to quality in case there's a crash. Well, turns out that's not true, because during the during the Corona crash and during the invasion of Ukraine, we saw regular equities crash, and we also saw the price of Bitcoin crash. So it turns out that wasn't true. And then was like, well, there's also the anonymity. Well, that turns out that's not true either, because if I can track one Satoshi, I can track that Satoshi all the way back to the original Bitcoin back in 2009. So if I can figure out you made one transaction, I can now go back and map every transaction you've ever made. You'll find that this is what federal agencies are doing now. So the anonymity part of it is gone, right? And then the other part was that it was like a stable currency in comparison to the dollar that's apparently fluctuating all the time because of inflation. And then you go back and you look at what happens with the price of Bitcoin, and it's totally speculative. It still is, and it will continue to be until it's regulated. And at the point where it's regulated, you're not going to be anonymous anymore. I like cryptocurrency and the idea of going around banks. That was where I was like, dude, I got 2 thumbs up on that one. That sounded like a great idea for me. I like cryptocurrency and the idea that I was able to, not so much, I don't want to defraud the US government. Like I want to pay, hey, just want to let anyone who's listening, I'd like to pay my taxes. I will pay my taxes. But what I do like is the idea of, like, for instance, countries that have currency controls, like India or China. Now some of those billionaires can get their money out, which I am a big fan of. I like that. I like countries that have currency controls. I like them to be punished for having currency controls. And a great way to punish them is through cryptocurrency. I like that idea. And so, I personally believe in China, it's basically a human rights violation that they keep the standard of living for their populace low so they can maintain a manufacturing economy, so they can continue to sell cheap things to Americans and to the Western world. That's the reason why. And the more money that these manufacturing companies make, they're only given a certain amount of yuan, and the what should happen in those countries is the standard of living should go up. So for instance, in India, if you notice the original VAs, a lot of them were from India, the original virtual assistants. If you go back and read the book, The 4-Hour Workweek. But what happened is so many people started hiring Indian personal assistants that the price of an Indian personal assistant went up, which is what's supposed to happen. The standard of living for those individuals went up. And as that happened, you know what happened? People started hiring personal assistants from the Philippines, and they started hiring them from Indonesia. That's the way normal markets work. If somebody has a good product, you start paying more and more for it. And the people who sell that product have a higher and higher standard of living. But that's not what happens in China. So anything that punishes that level of economy, I'm all for it. And that's why I'm a big fan of cryptocurrency. I'm not a big fan of cryptocurrency because I'm trying to hide from the government. And I'm not a big fan of cryptocurrency because I'm doing things that are illegal and I need my privacy. I'm a fan of cryptocurrency because it skips the banks. And even to this day, I still can't believe, I just tried to pay my taxes the other day. Last time I tried to pay my taxes, I had to make a big transfer from one bank to another, and just like being denied and getting all these fucking questions. And I'm like, yo, this has got to stop. Bitch, this is my money. You need to stop. So that's why I'm a fan of cryptocurrency. So let me say that before I go on to what I'm saying next. But what happened is when this incredible technology came out, and I try to explain to, I'm sure your audience is well aware, but let's just say I'm talking to a 21-year-old stripper at the Rhino trying to explain to her how cryptocurrency works, or I'm talking to a 75-year-old woman. The way I explained it to them is like this: when I go to the store and I make a transaction, there's a camera above us. Like, let's just say I go to Target, I pay with my credit card, and then I get a credit card receipt, and then there's like a transaction that's online, right? There's a transaction that's in the computer, but I'm a witness to it, and the cashier's a witness to it, and maybe you have like a camera that's a witness to it. When you make transactions on the blockchain, it's like you're making the transaction, except there are 100 million witnesses to it.
Yeah.
And the 100 million witnesses all have to agree that they saw the same thing, and then it's put on a permanent ledger so that that ledger cannot be manipulated. Now, obviously, later on we found out that it can be manipulated, but theoretically, that's what's supposed to happen. That's the best way to explain why blockchain works so well and what's so great about it. And I've also said this: any politician who doesn't agree to the idea of voting being put on the blockchain should be taken out of office immediately. There is no good argument for not running elections through the blockchain. Let me say that again. There is no rational, relevant argument for not running elections through blockchain, period. Anyone who tells you anything else, do not vote for that person. This is unassailable. Now, what's happened though is people will be like, well, I don't want to use blockchain for elections because it's my burnout cousin with the fake Lambo who's the one telling me to get into cryptocurrency. He's a con artist. I don't want to be involved with these other con artists. So people understand that. The other thing I want to explain is this: if you went back to the invention of manned flight, so the Wright brothers back in, I want to say 1908 in Ohio. I could be wrong about the date. When that happens, if you were to invest in every airline that existed from that point forward, you would have lost money. So even though manned flight was one of the greatest inventions in the last 200 years, or the last 100 years, no, it'd be last 150 years. The reality is, if you invested in all the different firms that were involved in manned flight, you would have lost money. All the airlines, because so many of them went out of business. And I think the same thing you could say about cryptocurrency.
Right, it's not who does it first.
Yeah, well, it's exactly who does it right. So the same thing will happen with cryptocurrency, where it's like if you invest in all the different cryptocurrencies, depending on when you invest in them, you could lose a significant amount of money. Right? It doesn't guarantee because you got in first. If you didn't get into the right thing, that you're going to make money. So there's just harsh realities I think people need to understand with this burgeoning space. And if people understand these harsh realities and use crypto for what it can be used for, then I think it's absolutely fantastic. If people believe I'm going to quit my job, because one of the other issues you have to understand is that, like, if you speculate on cryptocurrency, and we all know a guy who's done this, you speculate on cryptocurrency, and then the guy makes a ton of money. He didn't provide any service to the world. He just has a bunch of money. And if you're the guy with the money, you're like, well, fuck you. I don't care. I'm glad that I have a bunch of money, But the reality of the situation is sustained wealth over long periods of time. It comes from solving a problem, other people's problems. And when you solve other people's problems, then you become fantastically wealthy. You become, the General Electrics and the Amazons and the whatever. Like those people are wealthy because they solve problems. So when you understand that concept, then that makes sense. But if the problem you solved was that you took, mommy and daddy's money and you bought Ripple at 0 and it went up, and you sold it at the top and now you're ridiculously rich. You didn't solve anyone's problems. You're rich, so it doesn't matter. But generally, those people become very poor very quickly. That's what ends up happening. Because one of the other problems that happens that I've seen is that people they'll hit a lick, they'll catch something on the way up, they'll sell at the top, and then they start believing they know shit. They start believing they can tell when the market's going to go up and down. This is another thing I'm going to tell you. This is listed equities and Bitcoin. No one knows shit unless you are legitimately manipulating the market. Mm-hmm. Like some of those early pump and dump schemes that we would see, you'd have celebrities on Twitter pumping some crypto and then selling it at the top. Unless you are legitimately manipulating the market, like insider trading, no one knows anything. No one knows no one can call anyone who says they call the top, call another top. Anyone who says they call the bottom, call another bottom. You got anyone who call the top or bottom, they got lucky. I'm saying this 100% of the time they got lucky. No one knows anything. And anyone who tells you they know something, run the other way. This has been a Nobel prizes have been awarded for efficient market hypothesis, this concept. And the reason why is because whenever this is tested, whenever it's put into practice and any scientific scrutiny is put towards it, you find that no one can predict market action over any long period of time. They just can't. And so that's another thing that, because so many people in the early crypto space were claiming that they could call the top or call the bottom. And then when one of them accidentally did, they were given so much credibility because of the thing that they clearly got on accident. What that happened, that also screwed up the space. And then a lot of people would pile in and then they would lose a bunch of money. And then that guy would just change his Instagram handle, or I'm sorry, he would change his Twitter handle, stuff like that would happen. And so I think that's another pretty massive issue when it comes to the space.
Okay, cool. Well, there's a lot of things that you said there. I would say that, okay, so first of all, the first thing about cryptocurrency I would say is that it's exactly like the internet was in, let's say, 1999 or 2000, when it
it's a good analogy.
Remember when pets.com came out, it was like the number 2 or number 3.
What they like furniture.com when they were like, there was another one where they were selling couches or some shit. Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, pets.com is a great example.
Multi-billion-dollar companies that are worth.
Dude, how about, listen, my favorite basketball team, the Dallas Mavericks, is owned by Mark Cuban from Shark Tank. And if you go back and look at that transaction for $5 billion for audio, for broadcast.com or audionet.com, it was an absolute swindle. When you think about it, like we wouldn't even be talking about, we wouldn't even be discussing Mark Cuban in any way, shape, or form had he not basically swindled Yahoo out of $5 billion. And I mean, all credit to Mark Cuban, but like that's the whole thing. It's like, had he tried to sell that same idea 10 years earlier or 10 years later, it would have been nothing.
It would not. Exactly. So the same way that like cryptocurrency is, the same way the internet was very dangerous back then in 1999, the same way that cryptocurrency is dangerous now. The idea, though, is that you must do your research, which you said a lot of people don't want to do. And you must do your research and you must take evidence that you get and do your research on top of that evidence. Just based on your smoked out cousin that happened to make $5 million because he invested in something. That doesn't mean that he's wrong just because he's a smoked out idiot. Take what he did, investigate it, and you'll find out that, oh, my smoked out cousin actually knows what he's talking about, even though he just so happened to run into it accidentally. Based off of your own research that you do, right? Yeah. So doing your own research is extremely important for cryptocurrency. The problem is a lot of people are too lazy to do it. They don't want to do it themselves, and they just want to do it to get rich. Now, of course, I want to get rich too. There's no let me not deny I get into crypto to get rich, but crypto also has a lot of benefits itself too. Like Cyprus, I believe, their currency crashed dramatically, and this was a couple years ago, and they wouldn't allow their citizens to take out money. I think it was like you couldn't take out more than $1,000 at a time, and the only way that they could survive was to enact through Bitcoin. That's the only way that
Cyprus is another example of, again, there's billionaires in India trying to get their money out of India for exact same reason. Yes,
exactly. So reasons like that is why cryptocurrency itself is very, very beneficial. And it's even in Ukraine too. Like at the beginning of the war, people were sending people money through Bitcoin for food, for different things like that. In fact, my VA is in Ukraine right now because the the prices in Bangladesh were a little bit too much. So my VA is in Ukraine because of the war that's going on. The market dynamics make it cheaper for me to get a VA in Ukraine now.
It's really funny. So I have a VA in Mosul, Iraq right now. And it is funny the way that whole thing works. A couple things. A little off topic. This bullshit about Ukraine, the war in Ukraine is just a money laundering operation. Then why are they kicking the shit out of the Russians if it's a money laundering operation? I'm sorry, I just wanted to go off on the side. I just keep hearing this nonsense about that. I just had to say, I was like, well, then why are they winning if they're laundering all this money? No, but the thing with the cryptocurrency
being true at the same time, don't you think that? Don't you think that they could launder money and Ukraine could be kicking the shit out of Russia at the same time?
No, because they need the money to kick the shit out of Russia. They have to. Do you understand how incredibly expensive it is to do all this stuff? No, I don't. I don't agree with that at all. Going back to what you're saying before, about what I'm saying is there money laundering in Ukraine? Yes, the exact same amount as there is in Romania, the exact same amount there is in Belarus, the exact same amount there is in Russia, the exact same amount there is in Estonia, the exact same amount there is in Lithuania. They're all the exact same amount of money laundering, corruption, prostitution in all those Eastern European countries. It's not just Ukraine. That's the point I'm trying to make. But going back to what you were saying before with the situation with what was it, the thing before we were talking about? Oh yeah, having a cheaper dynamic. I have there's a guy I saw him on TikTok, and it was genius. Anytime there's a war or a terrorist attack, he goes and visits the country that happens, and he's like, I get hotel rooms for $50.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? After the explosion in Lebanon, he just goes there because obviously it wasn't a terrorist situation that happened there, but like he goes there right afterwards, and he's just like, yeah, it was great. I got to see everything. It was super cheap. Like that's what happened. Like
cruises to the West Indies actually were about $14 for a 7-day cruise right after Corona happened. I was like, this is unbelievable. This is like a Royal Caribbean.
Incredible.
$14 for 7 days because no one wanted to buy anything. Yeah. So take things to your advantage if you want. If you want to,
yeah. When I saw those cruise lines, when they saw the stock prices, I was like, dude, let's buy.
Yeah,
because it was like this idea that coronavirus is going to end cruise lines was one of the dumbest things. Like you just don't understand people or the world. Like I've been on like 14 cruises. I love going on cruises. People my age generally don't like going on cruises. Young people, unless it's the what's it called, the
I went to Virgin
Groove Cruise. The Groove Cruise.
Yeah.
Huh?
I went to Virgin Cruises. That was for like younger people.
Yeah. But anyway, going back to your point initially, it's like what should happen in the market is as we hire people from a certain area of the country, the standard of living of that place should go up. That's how free markets work. That's what's good. Free markets reward hard work. That's what's awesome about free markets, right? I have one guy who works for me in Nigeria, another one who works for me in Nepal, and one guy who works for me in Iraq. And I like that I'm hiring these people. They're getting a better way of life. I pay them fairly. And because of that, everything kind of works out. And eventually what will happen over time is as the standard of living goes up in those places, which it should, then you're going to start seeing more people in other places pop up and be like, well, okay, now I'm going to hire a guy in Argentina. Now I'm going to hire a guy in Nicaragua. Now I'm going to hire a guy who lives in, Ukraine. And so that's the way it should work. And you're right. In some places, because of currency controls, you're not allowed to do things like that. And we Men of Action, we take Bitcoin. I mean, I'm not stupid. Like we have a Bitcoin wallet. We take payments in Bitcoin. Some people are very, very comfortable doing that. And that's totally fine. That's totally fine. We accept that as a form of payment because I do respect this whole idea and I see incredible potential in it. But I do think, like I've said before, and some of these guys I'm good friends with and I party with them here in Las Vegas. They're the wrong. It's almost like, who John Zerka is. He's like, John Zerka is the wrong guy to represent the red pill. Some of the guys who were selling Bitcoin courses in the beginning, they were the wrong guys to sell the Bitcoin courses. They were selling like a Bitcoin lifestyle course, basically like invest in Bitcoin and then all these girls come with it, that kind of shit. And it's just really bad. And the other thing that's going to happen is, so I'm friends with Tom Sosnoff, who runs Tasty Trade. And Tom, and I both have the same belief that is basically once there's a listed options market on cryptocurrency, you're going to see a ton of volatility come out of that market. And when that happens, when it's regulated, you're also going to see a lot of this like crypto bro mindset kind of go away because it's going to be a regulated marketplace where serious companies are going to make massive transactions. The other thing that I think a lot of people are missing is that whenever these new coins come out and they're like, oh, these other coins are bullshit, but our coin has a utility. I'm always thinking to myself, I'm like, Amazon.com could just make a coin and just stomp you out. I just don't see how they couldn't. Walmart could just make their own coin and just stomp you out. Why couldn't they? You know what I'm saying? What if Amazon was like, hey, you can spend our crypto, our Amazon crypto, and you get a 15% discount on all of our products. And then all of a sudden now that level of crypto is in circulation. What's to stop you or Meta from doing it? Meta tried to do it, obviously didn't work, but what's to stop that, something like that from happening? It could happen. And when that happens, because this is decentralized, you can't stop them. Someone comes up with someone, instead of bringing utility to a currency, someone has a utility and then just attaches a currency to it. Then all of a sudden that becomes a massive competitive advantage. And what we're going to see that's already happened is, it's like what the top 20 wallets in the world have like half the cryptocurrency in the world. You know what I'm saying? It's like this massive inequity of wealth that was supposed to be stopped by cryptocurrency is actually created more of an inequity of wealth. So again, going back to what I said before, I'm a big fan of the blockchain. I'm a big fan of cryptocurrency. I'm just disappointed. I'm disappointed with the way things have gone. And all the promises that were made, again, about anonymity, about decentralization, about being a flight to quality, and about wealth disparity. And turns out none of those things were true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the thing that I noticed, the most surprising thing, I guess I should say, although when you think about it deeply, is that it shouldn't be that surprising, is that crypto markets follow psychology more than they follow like math and science.
Of course, because it's a younger audience that's filled with testosterone and estrogen. That's why.
Yeah, literally. So so it's a mix of both, of course. It's based on the hashing mechanism and different things like that. Cryptography, that's where it gets its name from, stuff like that.
Sure.
And it does have a predictability. I know you said you cannot predict it, but Bitcoin does go through a 4-year halving cycle. And when the 4-year halving cycle is, it reduces the inflation by half. So that then tends to make the Bitcoin shoot up in price every 4 years. But you don't know exactly when in that 4-year period the price is going to shoot up. But you do know that within a 12-month period, the price is going to shoot up.
Benito, the problem, Benito, is that if you know that everyone else does it, so they're going to speculate and they're going to jump up the price beforehand, and then people are going to short it. Like, it's just, I'm telling you, a lot of these things will go away when there's a liquid market to short cryptocurrency. Yeah, a lot of these things are going to go away.
Because I'm actually agreeing with you, because so we went through 2 happenings, and it was very predictable. It went up and it went down, went up and down, the same exact 4-year cycle. The last one that happened in 2024 or 2021, it went up and then it crashed. And then everyone thought it was, it's over, it's dead, it's gone. And then it went up again in November. And no one predicted that out of nowhere, even though it was in the same price, and everyone was like, this is crazy.
I'll bet we can find 500 people that'll tell you that they predicted it. And then we'll ask them for their tweets, and they won't have any tweets.
It's ridiculous, right? Yeah, people are like, I knew it was going to happen.
I knew that was going to happen for sure.
No one was going to happen. No one. Yeah. So even in the predictability, there's still some variety that happens that no one can anticipate that happen. So you just have to it's almost like you have to always have the most educated guess and do tons of research. And sure, the best person in the world can be right, but they'll be right like most of the time. They won't be right 100% of the time. No one knows everything all the time. Yeah. And the most important part too, in relation to your Walmart part, the most powerful cryptos, the cryptos that do the best, are the ones that are based on community, the ones that have the best users, the most adamant users. The most popular one is Dogecoin, for example. Dogecoin is based off of absolutely nothing. It's just a meme coin that has no utility whatsoever, and yet is the number 4 or 5 cryptocurrencies worth billions and billions of dollars, even right now, right? Mm-hmm. And that's just because of the community is so strong. And like you said, Walmart, the many people, Walmart is the number 1 private, it has the most employees in America. Mm-hmm. It's the number 1 privately company in America. If they came out with a coin, they have a massive community. Their coin is going to do probably better than Dogecoin is going to do. It's probably going to do better than Ethereum.
You get a 10% discount on all transactions. And if you take the coin as payment, as opposed to us paying you in cash, then we pay you more. That's the way we do it. And then next thing you know, there's like $40 billion worth of Walmart coin that's in circulation.
Yes.
And people are making transactions with Walmart coin. Once that happens, like, you can't stop that. And then Walmart's coin now stomps out, the next 6 or 7 coins because of it. Yeah, you're right. It's something that already had utility and then added a coin to it, as opposed to the other way around.
Exactly. In fact, there's coins out right now that do that. They give you like a 2%, 3% discount on buying things.
Yeah.
But because the community is not there, no one uses it. No one uses it. But if Amazon was to do the same 2 or 3%, that coin will then explode through price. That's what Facebook was trying to do, but I guess they ran into some legal problems. They were going to come out with a coin called Libra, I guess is whatever, because it's the opposite of Gemini. Gemini is the Winklevoss twins. They have their own cryptocurrency, and he called it Libra because it's the horoscope thing. And I guess Zuckerberg was being vindictive. I don't know if you saw the social network movie.
I have, yeah.
So I know that has a lot of fiction thrown in it, but it has a lot of truth in it too. So they were pretty much enemies ever since then. They sued each other and stuff like that. So it's an open community with many different aspects that's going to happen in the future. I'm actually kind of excited of what's going to happen in the future. Speaking of which, money, what do you think about when it comes to money, finances? What do you think about universal basic income and how things are going to change in the future, especially with, I know that we had our last recession was 2020, the COVID recession, although they changed the definition of a recession on Wikipedia and stuff like that, which is total nonsense. But the last recession that we had was in 2020.
Yeah. So you said both things can be true. Both things can be true. They changed the definition of a recession, and it wasn't a recession. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. Like what we just went through.
Two quarters of a downtrend. Yeah. That's the definition, though.
Right. My point is that wasn't a real recession. Like the people who are saying it was a recession are just like holding on by their teeth. Like, no, it was a recession. Like it was like, tell me, when did unemployment get to 15%? When did that happen? Wait, the market's at all-time highs, dude. I'll go check right now. What's happened, unfortunately, is because like, I'm not a fan of Joe Biden, but because Biden was elected, then there has to be a recession now. Like people were like really like clenching their buttholes. Like, no, we have to make them pay. I can't believe they elected this guy. And they're like, no, it's going to be a recession. And they're like, no, this is a recession. Oh, do you see they changed the definition? No, man. Like this was not I went out, like I went out in Vegas this entire time. The places are packed. These industries are booming. I know so many people who are making millions of dollars. Unemployment is like below fucking 6%. Stop. This is not a recession. That was not
that bad of a recession. It's a light.
I don't even think it was a recession at all, dude. Honestly, like I know what we're gonna say is 2 negative GDP quarters, but like what I need to see is like there was negative GDP quarters maybe because there was a massive amount of inflation, but then like the inflation. Remember, it was up like 10-11%. Well, what's it at now? It's at like 3.2%. Wait, inflation's back down to, how is that possible? Oh, we still don't have a Keystone pipeline. Oh, the Russians have invaded Ukraine. I guess we're going to be at 20% inflation. Turns out that didn't happen. Turns out what's happened is these are normal market fluctuations that happen. People can be like, you're so naive. Okay, if I'm so naive, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to buy stocks, and you go up and start shorting these stocks that apparently this crash is going to happen that you're waiting for, and then we'll just see who's right. Because every time I hear people on YouTube tell me that there's going to be a recession, they told me in 2014, and then they told me in 2015, and they told me in 2016, and they told me in 2017, and they told me in 2018, and in 2020 they kind of got it right because the Corona crash, but they didn't pick the Corona crash. And then they told me in 2021 it was going to be another recession, and then we hit market all-time highs. And then in 2022 there was the invasion of Ukraine, and then all of a sudden we started seeing another crash. And in 2023 there's going to be a recession, dude. I was told by everyone that the market was going to crash in the first quarter of 2023. I mean, every single person was on YouTube saying that. And the market, dude, we're 300 points away from all-time highs right now with the S&P 500. Dude, it's just so crazy to me. It goes back to what I said before, Benito. They make these predictions. I heard Alex Jones the other day. The middle of September, we're all going to be having mask mandates. Okay, when there's no mask mandates, my question is, are you going to start questioning your source? Because there won't be any fucking mask mandates. My question is here, when there's no recession, after people keep saying that there's going to be some massive recession, and okay, if you want to say that was a recession, that was fine. I don't agree. I do not think we've gone through. And if there was a recession, where's the money I lost? Where's the unemployment? Like, I just don't see it at all. Now, are consumer prices going up? Yes, but that's what happens with like general inflation. The other reason why I'm saying that is because you belittle. I'm 45 years old. You're belittling recessions I've actually gone through. Mm-hmm. That wasn't a recession.
Yeah.
So when I see something,
I do agree.
Yeah, of course. But a lot of people who you talk to don't believe that. They think it's going to be worse than 08. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching these fucking people. I'm seeing like the skyrocketing like house prices, but there's supposed to be this crash, and I'm just like, dude, the things you predicted on YouTube, turns out they aren't coming true. So after a while of them not coming true, can you hold those people accountable for being wrong? But they don't hold anyone accountable. So I'm going to say this right now. I did not believe at the beginning of 2023, I was like, there won't be a crash this year. There won't. And the main reason why there won't be a crash is because too many people on YouTube are saying there's going to be a crash. That was my only reasoning behind it. And turns out so far we're halfway through the year. Turns out I was correct. And so that's essentially what happens. I'll tell you something else. The Silicon Valley Bank, you remember that whole situation happened? That happened, and the federal government steps in and they bailed them out. And there was just everyone saying, you see, this is the beginning of the end. This is the cornerstone. The whole system is going to collapse. But it didn't collapse, did it? And the fact that the federal government stepped in and bailed them out, turns out that actually added confidence to the market. Now, I don't agree with them doing that. I wish that they hadn't bailed that bank out personally, but them doing that added confidence to the market, which delayed further crashes. There's going to be your audience who's going to listen to me right now, and they're going to be super angry with what I'm saying because they're like, no, the crash is coming. This is all bad. And here's the thing. This is all I'm saying. If you believe there's a crash coming, that's fine, but you need to believe so because of fundamental reasons.
Remember,
that's the first thing. Of course, dude. I just interviewed Robert Kiyosaki a few weeks ago. I got his number in my phone. I know Robert, but Robert has been predicting a crash every year for 10 years. Yes. Tell me I'm wrong, Benito. Tell me the part where I'm wrong.
I thought of when you said that. Yeah,
Robert's awesome. Robert is one of my favorite people in the world. Robert is incredible. Robert has been predicting a crash every year for 10 years. That's the issue. It doesn't, and when it happens, he'll be right, but will he be right for the right reason, or will he be right just because there's regular market cycles that happen? My point is, we don't. It's like it says in the book of Revelations, you're not going to know when the end times are coming. You're not going to know when Jesus is coming back. It's the same situation with the market, and people, they're so arrogant, they're so sure. Like, no, these other people don't know, but I know because I bought this program for $9.99 that I saw on Facebook, and I know that this program is going to tell me when the market's going to crash. And it's just so crazy when you see this kind of stuff happen. And then they argue with me, and then I'm like, okay, provide your evidence. And of course, they can never provide any evidence. That's the situation. Fixed equity yields were in contango, and every time that happens, that there's a recession, I'm like, you don't know shit. And I try to explain to these people, it's not that you're wrong, it's that you don't know. And even if you're right for the wrong reason. It's like the guy who buys the lottery ticket, and then afterwards, people are like, so how did you end up winning this thing? You got lucky. That's how you won. Yeah. That's what ended up happening. So I mean, that's essentially what's going on with this whole situation. I like what's going on with the market. I'm going to buy. It's every time I hear about the upcoming crash, I buy more stock every time because I'm just sick and tired. And the other thing is, there's another thing. Have you bought your first home? You need to go ahead and get into real estate now. All these real estate agents that just popped up out of nowhere that used to be a stripper 6 months ago or a bartender, they're just everywhere. And you know what I did? I was like, bro, I'm not buying any real estate. There's too many people talking about buying real estate. I'm just going to keep renting. And it's funny because I got Rich Summers coming on, and he just did a video about the same thing. He's like, yo, things are overpriced. When they built that Allegiant Stadium, I live right next to Raider Stadium. When they built Allegiant Stadium right next to us, I was like, and then I looked at I was going to buy one of the units in my my condos, and I was like, oh, another unit. And I was like, yo, these prices are ridiculous. Do you not realize they're ridiculous? I'm like, no, this is the going rate. I'm like, yo, when you guys figure out that football team is run by a bunch of morons, again, Henry Ruggs, Leatherwood, like I kept making one bad first round pick after another. I was like, when you guys that realize that team is run by a bunch of morons and they win 3 games next year, and that Derek Carr is actually garbage, you guys, the prices are going to crash. Turns out, a bunch of open units in my apartment complex, just like I predicted. So when I was going to buy a place, I was going to buy a premium, like way too high, and now I'm going to be able to buy at a discount. Because I
heard another reason too is because they were coming out with the MGM. What's it? The cube, the circle. What's it called?
The sphere. And then there's the Oakland A's moving next door over here to Tropicana. Look, I love Vegas. It's great. If Vegas was a stock, I would buy the stock for sure. But that's because I love this place and I love living here. But I warn people out there, just take a second to come to the realization you don't know what's going to happen. And when you hear people make predictions, hold them to their predictions. If they're wrong, remind them they're wrong. And that's the thing. When you see that, man, you're going to quickly come to the realization no one knows anything. Yeah. And the dream that someone knows stuff is the thing that you're being sold when you get your crypto course. And I personally I have friends who sell crypto courses, and I like the courses in that they educate you on the marketplace, but I don't like the courses in that, guys, just hang on. Things are going to go up next week at this date because there's going to be another Fed announcement. And then the Fed announcement is going to cause the price to go up or down. Stop, bro. No one knows anything. No one knows anything. And that's a sense, regardless of how negative you think that sounds, it's the truth. This is the truth.
But don't you also have to agree that you have to have market predictions too, or even just general predictions about the world? I know Ray Dalio came out with a book, Changing the World Order, where he talks about the local market cycles, like we always have recessions every 5 to 10 years, and then the long market cycle that happens like every 80 years, 80 to 100 years. If people don't know what the book is actually, this is it. Yeah, so this is the book right here. Ray Dalio actually.
I have a ton of respect for Ray Dalio as a businessman, and I have a ton of respect for Ray Dalio as a guy who gathers assets under management. I don't think Ray Dalio is better than anyone else when it comes to predicting market direction. And I'd be willing to put any kind of money he'd be wanting to put down to show that over any period of time, I can find some kid behind his desk, and we can just have the two of them go at it, and you're going to find that it's essentially exactly the same thing. I just don't a ton of respect for Ray Dalio. I'm going to read all of his books, but it just goes back to the situation where it's like, I know that you can't predict market direction. So what will happen is the cycles will happen, and then they'll go backwards, rationalize, and say, oh, well, let's look at these patterns. Oh, clearly there's an 80-year cycle. I'm like, maybe just two things happened 80 years apart that happen to have nothing to do with each other. And the market 80 years ago has very little to do with the market today, which had almost nothing to do with the market 160 years ago.
His thought process is that the human life, or I guess that's not necessarily true because our human lives are longer now than they were before. But the human life,
but my point is this idea of an 80-year cycle, the idea that this is tradable information that's going to make me money, that's a little naive, don't you think? It's a little naive to think that that's actual functional information that I'm going to use to make money. Man, I'm telling you, it is. Bro, I need to sell a book. Like listening to this, I just need to sell a book telling people I can predict the market direction. It makes so much money. This is crazy.
He doesn't say that. It's not like I'm advocating for him. I'm just trying to explain what he's doing.
I am advocating for him. Ray Dalio is very smart. Yeah. I am advocating for him, but he can't pick market direction any better than anyone else.
He does give predictions. Although if you say a prediction, if I say that, oh yeah, there's definitely going to be a recession in the next 10 years. Yes, that's true. But is that really a prediction, or is that just?
That's not. You're making my point for me. The idea there's going to be a recession in the next 10 years, you have completely taken yourself off the hook. Completely. First off, in 10 years, no one will remember that you made the prediction. And number two, when the thing happens, it's going to happen for it's so funny to me. There's so many people who have tied their recession prediction to whoever's in the White House. Watch all these recession predictions. If Trump or DeSantis wins in 24, watch all these recession predictions just vanish. You know what I'm saying? And then it's Democrats predicting a recession right after that. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, to me, you need to stop thinking that the president of the United States has like a recession button that he pushes. Fuck the American people. Let me push the recession button. It's just so naive.
He doesn't have that power in the first place, anyways.
Dude, thank you for explaining that. Maybe your audience needs to hear that. He doesn't have that much power. I'm not a fan of Biden. The idea that there was going to be a recession just because he was elected was naive. It was a naive prediction. It means you don't understand how markets work. It means that you were so filled with hate and vitriol that you thought that was going to, the Americans they're going to be punished for this. I'm like, the Americans are going to be punished for sure. I agree that there's some moral decay in this country because we let a man like that become president. I agree with that, but that doesn't guarantee a recession. That doesn't guarantee a depression. It doesn't. And a lot of people don't like to hear that. And so when we get through his entire, it's funny. You want to credit Trump when markets were at all-time highs under his administration, and then he doesn't take any blame when the crash happened at the end of his administration. And then the flip, you want to say the flip happens with Biden. No, the president of the United States doesn't have a stock market button. It's like, let me get on the phone with the Illuminati. Hey guys, we need the market to go up this week. Get the Rothschilds on three-way and let's make the market. I hope you don't actually think that's how the world works. I really do. Let me call the lizard people who live under Antarctica. Let's get them all together. The Rothschilds and the Illuminati and the lizard people, and we're going to make the market go up. Bro, come on, man. But there's so many people who actually believe this, and it's just getting, it's crazy, dude. Read my comments. If you don't believe me, read my comment section. There's so many people who still live in this world. They believe in directed energy weapons and weather machines and shit like that. And then these people are like making market predictions. Huh?
What is going on in Antarctica? I haven't done my research, so I don't know what's going on, but I've been hearing constant conspiracy theories that people are now allowed to go to certain parts of Antarctica.
Yeah, you can. As a civilian, you can go to all parts. You can go to, you have to get, it's hard, but you can go to all parts of Antarctica. This is a rumor that was started by flat earthers. Just basically this idea that you can't fly over Antarctica. I can show you hundreds of videos of people flying over Antarctica, people traveling to Antarctica. They just say it's all fake. It's I don't know. Like, I don't want to spend all the time going over this, but just take 5 minutes to research it. It's all fake. You can go to Antarctica.
So they're not doing any secret government conspiracies?
No, there are no secret government. There's just no reason to do them. You don't have to go to Antarctica to do them. There's so many other places. Why can't you just go to the Yukon and do them? Why can't you go to any place in Montana and do them? Why do you have to go to Antarctica to do them? Okay. There's no directed energy weapons that are causing earthquakes. That isn't true. If you think that's true, you don't understand how electromagnetism works or how attenuation works. That is not real. That is not what's going on. Is there a possibility of like exciting electrons in clouds to cause them to rain? Yes. You have to be very close to the cloud, and it has to be an extremely powerful laser. It's not coming from space, though. That is not how this works. So people have just, bastard. I know your crypto audience doesn't want to hear this, but like that, people have just bastardized these ideas. They take something that's like 1% true, and then they just start acting like an entire conspiracy has happened because of it. It's just so. Hey, I'll tell you a couple of them. You know that whole thing about plastic water bottles sitting in your car, and then the hot plastic causes people to get cancer. Have you ever heard that one?
Yeah. Yes.
Totally not true. Totally made up. One again, and no one takes 5 seconds to research this. Totally not true. Have you seen those athletes?
Because the plastic does cause estrogen-like chemicals to then leak into your body, and then people conflate that with cancer.
Yeah, look up the actual research on this, and you'll find that it's even less true than what you said. The other one was what was the other one? It was started by Sarah McLachlan like 25 years ago. He's the first one who came up with that. Vaccines cause autism. Totally made up. Yeah, absolutely made up. The cupping thing. They have they put the cups on you, and they have like the suction cups. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about? Absolutely doesn't work. Does absolutely nothing. Reiki healing does nothing. Chiropractor, chiropractic has been debunked 100 times over. And I was going to a chiropractor because it made me feel good hearing all those pops.
What is that? What is that? You do feel good after the chiropractor, but then you have to go back again because your body.
Yeah, because you're just being stretched. It's just normal physiology. It's normal physiological stretching. Yeah.
Really? Oh, wow.
That's all this. That's it. That's all this. Yeah. Wow. If you guys went to a physiotherapist, you would notice the same thing would happen. Now, yoga's real. That stuff actually helps. Just because yoga is stretching, but it's stretching under a warmer environment, which causes your muscles to be able to get more blood flow and expand. Yoga accidentally scientifically does work. But a bunch of things they're just not real. Reiki healing is fake. What's the other one? Acupuncture totally made none of it's true. Acupuncture does not tons of scientific studies. Acupuncture doesn't do anything, and it's just you see these people and they're just again. I know the reason why I don't mind saying this kind of stuff, Benito, is that people who want to buy my course are rational human beings, and people who aren't rational, who believe in directed energy weapons, why would they ever buy my course? That is the belief that when it's clearly either an exploded transformer or arson, what happened in Maui, when clearly do you really think the federal government had to shoot a laser beam at Maui, or do you think someone just went with a fucking lighter and just lit it? Which costs less? Yeah, I know. It's so crazy. You consider all the levels of arson that we've seen in California, hundreds of arsons have been arrested. It's just that's clearly what's going on. So what we'd rather believe is in directed energy weapons. Why is that we need to believe that? Because it allows for a victim mentality. Just imagine the directed energy weapons, dude. Global warming is because of directed energy weapons. Earthquakes are because of directed energy weapons. Flooding is because of think about what happens now, dude. I can literally blame everything in the world on the Illuminati now. Yeah. Because of this incredible conspiracy that I have. And it's just it's such an incredible victim mentality, and it leaks into every part of your life. Is that the reason why you're not in shape? Because of the directed energy weapons? Is that the reason why you're fucking poor and you live in your mom's couch is because of directed energy weapons? Bro, like get a grip. I just like the reason why I never worry about having these conversations is because the people who believe the earth is flat, like they're just not successful. They're not ever going to take, like they don't have, you have to have such an anti-victim mentality in order to take my course that I'm not worried about pissing those people off. I'm only interested in fucking killers. Like I'm interested in high achievers. I'm interested in commanders. I'm interested in competitors. I'm not interested in like, I'm not going to save the world with MOA. I'm just going to save the best.
Yeah. And I think the reason why this happens actually is because a lot of people take a little bit of truth and they explode it to ridiculous conspiracy theories. Because even like I know rain seeding is a thing that they tried to do during the Beijing Olympics. It worked a little bit. It kind of worked a little bit to make it rain before.
They tried to do in Dubai, but the extrapolation is now the monsoon season in like 1969 in Vietnam was created by the U.S. government in order to defeat the Viet Cong. Like some fucking nonsense, dude. It's just crazy that anyone actually even considers the possibility of that being true. And the other one is the technology to build the pyramids. We don't have it anymore. Yeah, we do. We have pyramids. There's a fucking pyramid outside next to my house right now. It's called the Luxor. We can build pyramids now. Those people were more advanced than us. No. Why is that? It's because now they're aliens and there's a global conspiracy of lizard people. And that's why I'm poor. And that's why my girlfriend cheated on me. And I'm a victim and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, no, man, it's not about a government, like the directed energy weapons. It's not a government conspiracy. It's just physics. That's the reason why. It has nothing to do with a government conspiracy. It's just electromagnetic attenuation. That's why these things don't work. And people don't want to hear that. It's so much, their lives make so much more sense if there's someone else to blame for their failures. And for me, the only person to blame for my failure is me. And the reason why, like you'll find that people who have an internal locus control just tend to believe in conspiracy theories less. Also, people who have a background in engineering or science or technology or mathematics, they believe in conspiracy theories a lot less than people who don't, right? And so that's the reason why that happens. Like, again, we're going way down this hole, but like,
no, this is a good hole to go.
No, but like for instance, the idea that the moon landing was fake. Okay, if you want to accept that possibility, that's fine. But the problem is the idea that we couldn't have gone to the moon. Now you're being ridiculous. It's like, oh, there's no way they could have done that math. They didn't have enough calculation that I do on my iPhone. Well, the funny thing is the math to go to the moon was actually done in the 16th century by Isaac Newton in a book called Principia Mathematica. But you didn't know that because you don't study or understand any concepts dealing with physics. The idea that like, there's no way Oswald could have killed Kennedy. This is one of my favorite conspiracies of all time. If you believe that John F. Kennedy was assassinated by a combination of a combination of LBJ, aliens, fucking George Bush, and the Illuminati, that's fine. Believe whatever you want. But one thing I do know, because I've been there, because I'm from Dallas, is that you had a former U.S. Marine with a Carcano rifle, bolt action, firing down into the right, and he was left-handed, at an unobstructed object moving at 2 miles away, directly away from him. And if you ask any Marine if they could have made that shot, every single one of them will tell you unequivocally yes. And it wasn't one shot, it was 3 shots, and he missed one of them. Okay? So this idea that Oswald couldn't, if you want to say Oswald didn't kill Kennedy, whatever with your speculation. If you want to say Oswald couldn't kill Kennedy, you just don't understand physics.
Yeah.
If you want to say we didn't land on the moon because of conspiracy X, Y, and Z, which makes no sense because there were 600,000 people that worked on Apollo and Gemini, and apparently all of them were liars, or the idea that we couldn't have gone to the moon, you just don't understand physics. We could have gone to the moon.
Yeah, a comment from Namato Moshai, I don't know how to say his name. He says, gender reveals have done more damage than...
But isn't that great, though? Like, what he's saying right now is like, couldn't we worry about actual problems that we're having?
So
couldn't we worry about actual problems that we're having instead of directed energy weapons? We're having real... One of my favorite things that ever happened was when... not Bradley Manning. Who's the other guy? The Julian Assange. When they release all of those, when they release all of those things on WikiLeaks, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
When they have all this incredible amounts of data, and turns out there were tons of conspiracies that were happening. Julian Assange was like, you guys are still stuck on Bush plan 9/11. No, Bush didn't plan 9/11. look at all these other conspiracies I have for you, but you're still stuck on these weird ones about aliens and shit. Like, the world really has fucked up things that are happening. Hey guys, ask yourself this question. Why is it that if I grow up in a poor neighborhood and my parents are poor, they pay less in property taxes and therefore I go to a worse public school?
Yeah.
How is that not a conspiracy? Why do we never talk about that? Ever? Mm-hmm. That's an actual conspiracy that we never discuss. Why is that? And the reason why is because it's not interesting. It's not interesting
enough. Yeah.
Look, we had a milk dietary pyramid when I was growing up in the 80s that told us all the red meat and milk I'm supposed to eat. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the bottom, it said, brought to you by the dairy farmers of America.
Yeah.
How is that not? That is an actual conspiracy. Why don't we ever talk about that one?
Carbs at the bottom, they wanted you to eat to 5 to 7.
Yeah, exactly. That's an actual conspiracy. Why don't we ever talk about that one?
That's crazy.
How about the fact that there was an African-American neighborhood in Topeka, Kansas in 1921 that was fucking firebombed, and we never talk about that shit? How about the fact that in the state of Texas, we're actually taught in junior high that the Civil War was not fought over slavery? What the fuck? Like, how is that not a conspiracy? But we want to talk about laser beams and shit. It's just crazy to me that we still do this. Like, it just, to me, it's one of the most crazy things that I've ever seen. And then the other thing is, like, and I really appreciate this because I totally agree. You see these LGBT protests that happen, and then one of the things that happens is they file for, like, you have to file. If you want to have a protest or whatever, a rally, you have to file with the city in order to do that. And one of the things the cities would come back and be like, that's fine, but you can't have any children under the age of 18 there. And they're like, well, then we're not going to do it. Mm-hmm. What? Why do you have to have children there?
Yeah.
What is going on? That's an actual conspiracy. Yeah. Like, why do these protests? I'm totally fine. If you want to celebrate your alternative sexual proclivities, I'm totally fine with that. But then you need to have children there.
Because of violence might happen.
Violence, but I mean, they should. Why should they have kids? Because I don't want to indoctrinate my kids to become trans. Yeah. Like that. That's why I wouldn't want it. That makes sense to me. That makes sense. But you're saying, well, we're not gonna. Or if you're not gonna let us bring kids to our the thing where we have men, women with their penises out. If I'm not allowed to bring kids to that, then fuck it. We're not gonna have a rally. There's not gonna be a parade anymore. And I'm like, what? Why do you need? Like, Mike Rashid was completely right about this. It's like, why do you need to have kids at this parade? I don't understand. You know what? Whenever St. Patrick's Day comes around, you know what I never noticed during the St. Patrick's Day parade? I never noticed the bar owners at like McGillicuddy's like, you know what we need? More fucking kids.
That's true.
Why don't we have more kids in here drinking with us on St. Patrick's Day? No one complains about the kids that don't get to go to the bar. But for some reason, when we have an LGBT pride parade, I need kids there. Why do I need kids to be there? Why? There's nudity there. Why do I need kids? There's an actual conspiracy. Why can't we talk about that conspiracy instead of fucking directed energy weapons?
I don't think there used to be nudity at pride parades. So I live in DC, so they have parades here all the time.
Dude, I am totally fine with pride parade. You want to know Benito, you want to know a great place to pick up women? A pride parade. Yeah. They're awesome. Right. Pride parades, I don't have a single problem with a pride parade. Those are fine. My point is, I don't know why I need to have kids there.
Yeah.
That's my only point.
No, I understand what you're saying because the parades have changed dramatically. Like I was saying, 10 years ago, they didn't used to be nudity, but now that you go, it's way worse, more debauchery.
Yeah,
I would say. Than it used to be. And the fact that there's more debauchery, you would think that, okay, fine, you can have debauchery, whatever, but you should probably not bring kids if there's more debauchery now than there was 10 years ago.
But the point is to desensitize the kids to the debauchery.
Okay.
And that's what I'm opposed to.
Yeah.
That's what I have an issue with. Like, dude, do you want to know what no one had to teach me, Benito? No one had to teach me when I was 12, 13 to want to like girls. I knew when I was 12 or 13, I like girls. When I went through puberty and I'm 14, 15, I was 100% sure I like girls. I was into girls. Girls were great. I was totally into girls back then. I knew that. No one had to teach me that I would prefer women to men. No one had to do that. No one. And so I'm just confused why, like, I need to be indoctrinated in any sexual proclivity when I'm younger. No one had to tell me this. So I'm just so confused why now there seems to be this necessity in primary education to just be like, hey, just to let you know, sucking dick might be an option for you. Like, keep my fucking kids away from this. No one had to teach me that.
Yes.
Why? Oh my God, bro. It's just really aggravating to me.
It's kind of
like,
crazy because I remember even like a kid, like, okay, I would see a scene on TV where boys and girls would kiss. And then my mom and dad would like cover my eyes to be like, and this is, regular heterosexual.
Yeah.
And they'll cover my eyes because, kids are not supposed to be exposed to any type of sex. So my parents were doing that to me.
I don't mind you knowing. If you grew up on a farm, you're going to see horses fuck. Like, I totally get that. That's not my point. My point is like, I didn't need to be pushed into one direction or another. You don't need to, like, when I was going through puberty, no one had to be like, hey, Michael, you should probably try making out with these women instead of these goats and sheep. Like, no, like, I was like, I know that I don't want to fuck with men or animals. I knew that very early on when I was a child. No one had to fucking teach me this. So I just don't understand why I need my children to be exposed to all these alternative ideas. Why can't they make up their mind? And the idea was, we're teaching them about trans and lesbian and bisexual and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but no one had to teach me about that. Like, I would just I got the opportunity to make up my mind. And then the other thing is, why can't I be educated on this after I'm 18?
Yeah.
Why can't I do that? I mean, I just don't understand this concept. Like, I know I was fully aware of my maleness and my ability to become my attraction towards women was something I was very aware of after I went through puberty. So the idea that I would have the ability to change my gender before puberty seems really, really counterproductive to me.
Yeah,
seems incredibly, bro. And then so it's like, that seems really strange to even give me that as an option. And then so how is it that I would have people, what would cause my, a 9-year-old version to me of me to even consider the idea of changing my gender? I don't know. How about if we just put it in our schools where this is something that I was constantly exposed to? I'm saying this as somebody who, I don't have a problem with pride parades. I think they're totally fine if you're over the age of 18. I think they're great. I think we absolutely should have them. I don't want to expose my children under the age of 18 to smoking, pornography, alcoholism. I don't want them joining the military before 18. They don't need to vote. So why are we asking them to change their gender? I think that's a rational question that doesn't make me bigoted or homophobic.
Everything that you just listed are laws, by the way, that you're not allowed to do these things before 18.
So, but that's an actual conspiracy. Let's talk about that and stop talking about fucking directed energy weapons. Okay? Bro, if you want to go down this road, we could go down. I'll piss all of your audience off. You remember the whole Alex Jones gay frogs thing? Frogs have been able to change their gender for longer than humans have been alive. Sorry.
But it's happening more now. See, that's the other thing too. That's what I'm saying. You take a little bit of truth and you take a little bit of conspiracy, and then you make it explode way more too.
Now here's the thing, Benito. So LBGT. So this is you can identify later on in life as trans, but you can't make yourself gay. I don't think you can. I don't think you can make yourself gay. You and I know that there's as men, we're fully aware, because maybe some people are not aware of this or watching this. You can't make us gay. Sorry, I don't know if you're. I'm pretty sure you feel the same way I do. You can't make me gay.
The reason why I even say that is because I remember, as a kid, you would always have one boy in your class that was clearly gay, and no one made him gay. No one
made him gay. Thank you. My point. But it wasn't water that made him gay. Now, if you want to say that things in society make people more likely to become trans, one thing that's happened, especially on the right, is they're confusing trans with gay. Trans and gay are two different things. Gay probably has some genetic backing behind it. Trans does not. This is where we're confusing these two ideas. Gay and trans are not the same thing. So if we have a frog that actually changes its biological gender, that's different than a human choosing to change their gender because deep down they just want attention. You see how those are two different things? That's where we're conflating the two ideas. Pray the gay away doesn't work. It doesn't. People are born gay and then they're just gay, and then that's how it works. And there's nothing wrong with them being gay. They can be gay if they want to be gay. It's totally fine. They don't have a choice that to be gay. They just born gay. And I know this. You want to know how I know this, Benito? Because I don't have a choice. I'm straight. There's nothing that can make me not find beautiful women beautiful. I'm always going to find them beautiful. No one can. It doesn't matter what you show me on a Victoria's Secret with alternative lifestyles and alternative body types. I'm still going to find what I find hot. And you can't make me not be straight. I'm just straight. So this idea that we're making people gay is absurd. The idea that we're more inclusive to people who are trans, that's different than being gay. But because the word is LBGT and we put those together, we're getting those things confused where trans and gay are now the same thing, and they're not the same thing. Like, for instance, I don't know if you're aware of this, Dylan Mulvaney or whatever the fuck his name is, the guy from Bud Light, he fucks women. Did you know that?
Yeah. He's a lesbian.
He fucks women. Do you know who else fucks women? Kendall or Caitlyn Jenner. Caitlyn Jenner fucks women. Did you know that? No, because gay and trans are two different things. So you didn't know that. And so that's the other issue. So as the acceptance of that whole community increases and the number of people in that community increases, it's increasing because people are choosing to become trans. It's not because more people are gay.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that we've been
it's also increasing because there's way more bisexual women than bisexuality in women is a what's it called? It's a spectrum, but it's not a spectrum in men. In men are generally either gay or straight, but there's a few men that are bisexual. It's a very small number that are actually bisexual. There's a large number of women that are bisexual. And what happened is those women who are just like straight women who occasionally like found other women attractive, they didn't identify as bisexual. But now because of the openness to it, you find more women identifying as bisexual and more men identifying as trans. And so that's why that community has grown. There's nothing in the water that's making more people gay. If you just look at gay men, you're going to find we have the same number of gay men as we had before. It's not gay men that are increasing. It's the rest of that community that's increasing. People identifying as bisexual, that mainly women, and men that are identifying as trans. That's what's changed.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so that's actually the real question I asked was CBDCs. That's why we even started this whole thing. What is your thought process on CBDCs? I know in Nigeria they introduced it, CBDCs, but then everyone hated it and they had to pull it back. They had to take it back. China already has its own version of CBDCs with the
Are you talking about the brick?
No, I'm talking about central bank digital currencies.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I thought it was a matter of time before this happened. People don't like, federal governments don't like getting fucked over and having people not pay taxes. But the difference is that what the federal government is going to do is, and like this is true. Like, what happens if it comes to a situation where it's like you have to accept this certain woke ideology, and if you don't, you're not allowed to use this currency, and this currency is the only way you get to eat. And by the way, this isn't a new concept. They do this in China. What's the political party? If you want to work as a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, or whatever, what political party must you belong to? You must belong to the Chinese Communist Party, period. If you do not belong to the Chinese Communist Party, you don't have the right to work in a lot of cases. So this concept is not a new concept. The idea, well, in the United States might be, if you do not hire based on these practices, then therefore you are not allowed to use this currency. And so because of that, it's like, well, you don't accept people because of these practices. An idea might be like, you own a Hooters and you choose to not hire trans men to work at your Hooters, which you have the right. I personally think you have the right to do so if you choose to not want to do that. And so because you do that, therefore, payment processors are, the federal government then steps down and say payment processors are no longer allowed to work with Hooters. That would be a fear of a central currency from a bank.
Okay.
That's a fear that I would have. Yeah. But is it going to happen? I mean, I just think the free market's going to decide. In any of these cases, the free market is going to decide.
Yeah. So I think it is going to happen, but I think there's going to be multiple ways that we can exchange value. Pretty much what's going to happen is that there's going to be CBDCs, right? In America, I'm talking about. The dollar is going to continue. Cash dollar is still going to continue. Strippers need their money, and people, the dollar is never going to go away.
The dollar going away is just one of the funniest things I've ever heard of. Like, so what's the other currency backed by a B-2 bomber? Tell me the other B-2 bomber currencies. Let me know about that one. The F-22s. What other countries have F-22s? The M1 Bradley, the M1 Abrams tank. Tell me all the other countries that have that one. This idea the dollar is going to go is so absurd.
The BRICS have 70% of the world's population, Michael. You're forgetting. That's why. That's where the power comes from.
Yeah, but here's the problem, right? So what happened with the euro? Why did Brexit happen? Because England did not want to pay for the debt of Greece. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So now you're telling me that like India and China, what if they have different opinions on like on currency policies? What happens? Like, do you understand? Like, a lot of these countries are joining together against these Western European nations because they're irrational, belligerent players. Do you understand? They're just like, so you have a bunch of like irrational, like heads of state coming together to like create one currency that's supposedly better. It's not going to be better. It's going to be a disaster. It's got like you want a prediction? Here's a prediction. BRIC won't survive. The US dollar will. Go ahead, record that. Play that 10 years. US dollar will be fine in 10 years. BRIC won't even be a thing in a headline anymore in 10 years.
Yeah, it's not going to work because it's so many different countries coming together, and you're going to have different.
Yeah, but they're belligerent countries.
Yeah.
That's the problem. I'm mostly referring to China and Russia, but like India doesn't, like sometimes they want to play ball with the US and sometimes they don't. And then like the same thing with Brazil. Yeah. You know, it's like we need to flex our muscle and show that we're better than you. And then people who are anti-US are like, look at these countries coming together. They're going to defeat. Like, man, have you seen, bro? It's like, it's so crazy what's happening. Like you want to talk about a recession. There's an actual recession that's going to happen in China. Remember how China was going to replace us? No, man, China's not going to replace us. China doesn't innovate anything. They just copy what other people do. That's what they do. Russia is not going to replace us. Russia has a GDP on par with Mexico's.
Yeah, I did hear
that. The world is not what you think it is. Like it's so crazy. It's like the Matrix attack is the one that actually makes you think that Russia is going to defeat NATO. That's the actual Matrix attack is that. That's the actual that's the actual problem.
Yeah, they say that Russia is a gas station with nuclear bombs. That's really what they are. That's a country.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. And by the way, do you want to know why the borders of Ukraine exist? Because Russia agreed to those borders when Ukraine agreed to get rid of their nuclear weapons.
Exactly. Yeah.
The reason there was a treaty signed by the United Kingdom, the United States, and Russia to support as a security treaty to support the boundaries of Ukraine. And Russia, who agreed to that treaty, is now coming in after basically, funding an insurrection in eastern part of Ukraine. Now they're invading to defend the people that they basically gave weapons and money to in the first place to start a fucking revolution. Like that's essentially what happened. And then they're like, well, the United States, the CIA started a revolution in Ukraine in 2014. You mean after Russia took Crimea? Like, bro, can you imagine that? Can you imagine like Mexico comes on and takes Texas, and then we have to like start a war with Mexico? And people are like, well, it's the Mexican intelligence that started. It was like, no, there wasn't. If you attack the United States, the entire world, if China attacked California, people in Texas would want to fight China. Does that make sense? Or does that not make sense? If China came in and literally took California, people in Illinois, Iowa, Florida, Vermont would be like, fuck those motherfuckers. We're taking California back. I guarantee you that happened. So this idea that Russia takes Crimea and the rest of Ukraine wouldn't be upset about it is stupid and naive. Of course, they didn't want to go back and deal with Russia. You didn't need a coup. You didn't need the CIA to get involved. That's essentially what happened. The president of Ukraine, who was pro-Russian at the time, passed laws against protesting. Do you know when you pass laws against protesting, you know what that causes? Protesting.
Yeah, I know. And the real reason I think that Russia invaded is because Ukraine was going more towards NATO, and they didn't want.
Partially, but Ukraine, but NATO had already denied Ukraine back in 2008, and so my question to you is: Sweden also was going more towards NATO, and Russia was threatening to invade, and then what happened there? I'm not sorry, Sweden, Finland. What happened?
They will never invade Sweden without.
Okay, but what about Finland? Finland was not part of NATO. So Finland said that they wanted to join NATO, and then what did Russia do about it?
I don't think Russia will ever invade Sweden without.
No, Finland. Finland borders Russia just like Ukraine does.
But Ukraine is more, even genetically similar to Russia.
Cool. Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania. Those people are ethnic Russians as well. So what happened there?
So I think what happened is almost like Ukraine was the last straw, and Ukraine was about to join NATO, right? I'm just telling you what.
But so it's awesome. Here's actually what's going on. Russia invaded for oil.
Really? Russia needs more oil?
Yes, they do. They absolutely do. How does Russia get oil to Germany? They get it through pipelines that go through Ukraine.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay. And Ukraine also has the 20th largest oil reserve on the planet now, and they're going to start selling their own oil to Germany. And Those other countries that I just mentioned are about to get F-35s, and Russia will not be able to prosecute any more land wars. Once there are F-35s in Finland, Russia can't invade Finland anymore. And by the way, the correct answer was all of those countries I just named joined NATO, and Russia did nothing about it because they can't, because Russia's a paper tiger. So Russia tried to do this whole thing with Crimea because they didn't want to lose. The difference is Ukraine borders the Black Sea. That's the actual correct answer. And the Black Sea is where a lot of the petroleum is. That Russia did this for oil. That's the only reason they did. They did it for oil. They don't give a fuck about the people of Donbass. They just did this for oil. And if you look, they're creating a land bridge down to Crimea through the Donbass region. That's essentially what's happening, so that they don't have to use the Black Sea in order to ship the oil back. So that's what's going on here. It's nothing to do with ethnics who live in ethnic Russian-speaking people that live in Kiev, and we're going to protect them. If you literally believe that Vladimir Putin is there to protect ethnic Russians in Ukraine, how naive are you? Like, this is crazy. No, that's not why he's there. They invaded for oil. That's what happened. Yeah. They invaded for oil, and they knew the time was running out because once NATO had the 200 F-35s that they were getting, then that means that now they had stealth aircraft and now they had air supremacy over Russia. Then that was the end of this is the last chance for Russia to gain any more land. And then that's the end of it. Them joining NATO, I'm not saying them joining NATO didn't piss them off. I'm sure it did, but it also pissed them off when Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Finland, and Sweden joined NATO.
Okay.
And Russia did nothing about it. That's the actual correct answer. It is because of oil. It's not because of, it's funny that narrative still exists.
Isn't that crazy that oil is the reason for a lot of, especially recent wars?
Well, it's funny because like we have the weapons of mass destruction thing, which is another conspiracy, and then we invade Iraq for oil.
Yeah.
But like the idea that Russia invades Ukraine for oil doesn't make sense, but the U.S. invades Iraq for oil, but that does make, like, guys, figure out your fucking conspiracies because you can't seem to get them straight. Okay, the United States invades Iraq in 90 and then 03 because what they can't have is Saddam Hussein control all the oil fields in Iraq and then all the oil fields in Saudi Arabia and all the oil fields in Kuwait. Like, imagine one guy having all that petroleum, especially back then in 90 when the United States was a net importer of oil. If you do that, then all of a sudden the U.S. can't go to war with Iraq. They have to make deals with Iraq. Now Iraq becomes incredibly wealthy. The Saudi Iraq, we'll just call it Saudi Iraq. Saudi Iraq becomes incredibly wealthy, and then they invade Iran, and then there's no way to stop them at that point. So that's why the U.S. did that. They didn't do it to steal the oil, but they understood the world's petroleum supply would be incredibly unstable if Iraq had invaded Saudi Arabia, and that's why they did it. But that's not a sexy way to sell a war, huh?
Part of the reason why Iraq invaded Kuwait too was because Kuwait was doing diagonal drilling into Iraq and stealing.
But we're talking like less than one half of 1% of Iraq's total oil supply that they were getting their hands on.
Yeah,
that's not like diagonal. Have you seen how small Kuwait is? Like, it's not.
Why did they invade Kuwait then? I thought that's the main reason why they invaded Kuwait, because Kuwait was
they invaded Kuwait to get Kuwaiti oil, and then when they realized the U.S. was going to come and invade, then they were like, "This isn't going to work." So one of the problems that happens is like, Iraq it's very similar to the two world wars between Germany and France, which, by the way, I know there's Franz Ferdinand, the assassination of Franz Ferdinand in Serbia, Sarajevo, like that has something to do with it. But the main precipice of both wars is Germany invading France, like the main reason for both of those things. And in both wars, what happened is Germany had militarized and France wasn't ready to defend themselves. In both world wars, that's what happened. It's the same situation where Iraq had militarized and Saudi Arabia was not ready to defend themselves. And because Saudi Arabia wasn't ready to defend themselves, and neither was Kuwait, and by the way, neither was Bahrain, and neither was Qatar, and neither was the United Arab Emirates, none of those countries would be able to stand up to Iraq in a land invasion, right? If you go to those countries now, do you know what you find? They all have air forces now. They all bought Patriot missile batteries. They all have M1 Abrams tanks. They have the ability to defend themselves now, whereas before they did not. And so Saudi Arabia they needed time. Saudi Arabia, I think, has the 5th largest defense spending of any country on the planet now, in part because of the threat of Iraq invading. So the United States came over there and got rid of that because like it's one of these situations where it's like, do we necessarily agree with their politics? No, but they controlled at that point a significant portion of the world's petroleum supply. And before shale and fracking and all that kind of stuff happened, those technologies existed. The easiest way to pull oil out of the ground was where? In sandy areas. This is the reason why you don't drill for oil. You don't generally drill for oil in Colorado. You drill for oil in West Texas because it's dirt. It's soft dirt you can just drill into and pull out the oil. Well, now we have new ways of extracting oil, which is all of a sudden why Ukraine has become more valuable. Now these new ways of procuring petroleum, there's easier ways to do it in harder rock formations. And so now all that oil that exists in Ukraine is now, it's possible. Now Ukraine can become wealthier, sell their own oil to Germany, and undercut Russia. Russia gets 35% of their GDP before the war, but 35% of their GDP from petroleum. 60% of their revenues to the government was from petroleum. So their government is funded mostly by petroleum. So you're going to cut off their main source of revenue. Does that make sense? Yeah. That's why they went to war. Stop believing the Donbass bullshit. Oh, there's Nazis in Russia and Ukraine. Even though their prime minister and their president are both Jewish, the Nazis are running Ukraine. Like how dumb are you to believe? I'm sorry, I'm going way too many directions here, but it was just one of these. I study military history. I'm a U.S. military officer, and like that's just one of the things. There is a good reason to not support the Guardian. I don't know what that is. Okay, cool.
I'm saying, is Putin's Ukraine invasion about fossil fuels, about oil? Pretty much. Yeah. So pretty much what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. The continent has grown over reliant on Russian gas. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if there's a couple things that are happening. The same reason why Russia has to invade Ukraine is the same reason why Saudi Arabia created the Live Tour and got into pro golf and is getting into all these pro sports, because Saudi Arabia and Russia understand that as the world becomes less and less reliant on petroleum, they lose more and more power. That's why they do these things now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like for Russia, if I'm looking at this from Russia's standpoint in 2019, they have to invade Ukraine. I understand from their standpoint why they have to invade. Because once Finland and Sweden and Germany and France and all these other countries have stealth fighters that the Russians can't defeat, Russia cannot defeat. At that point, Russia no longer has the ability to push westerly. Does that make sense? Crimea and Azerbaijan don't have stealth aircraft. Does that make sense? Like those places don't have stealth aircraft. But as soon as if Ukraine becomes part of NATO, you're correct. I'm not saying that didn't have anything to do with it. But if Ukraine becomes part of NATO and they start putting F-35s in Ukraine, for those of you who don't understand, F-35s are the new joint fighter that the United States is selling to NATO. It's almost completely stealth. It's not as stealth as the F-22. It's not as stealth as the B-2, but it's very, very stealth. And the S-400 surface-to-air system that the Russians have cannot shoot it down. And so because of that, all of these little pissant countries can now fly over Russia with impunity and bomb any place in Russia anytime they want. And because Russia didn't play ball with NATO, they're the only country that doesn't get the new toy. Does that make sense? Also, if F-35s are in Russia, the likelihood of Russia being able to sell their Sukhoi 57s to any other country when the Sukhoi 57 isn't actually stealth, now it's like, what's the point? Like Russia now, one of their main industries is selling armaments, the T-90 tank and the Sukhoi 57. Now there's no reason to buy those jets because they don't work or they can't stand up to F-35s. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and
so I mean, there's a lot of geopolitical stuff that's going on.
I know.
I should debate Scott. I was going to debate Scott Ritter. I think I am going to debate Scott Ritter. I think I should probably have more discussion about this. Yeah, it's just funny the narrative that's out there that's just so completely wrong. Go ahead.
Even though they're invading for oil, and that's the reason why almost all of our wars nowadays are because of resources, oil, different things like that. Like you said, places like Dubai, places like Saudi Arabia are realizing that they have to transform from that because we're now moving towards renewable sources. I don't know if you saw the line. Saudi Arabia is coming out with a city that's 170 kilometers long.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. So for those of you who don't know, they're basically going to build a city that's in a straight line and it's supposed to have a smaller carbon footprint. I think this
total bullshit is never going to work. This is not.
Of course it's not going to work. Yeah, of course. This is virtue signaling. This is virtue signaling. This is look at our low carbon emission city and ignore the fact that we beheaded 81 homosexual people.
I know, right?
That's what's going on. Hey, but let me say this again. I'm not anti-LGBT. You should not kill people because they're gay. That's a really fucking bad reason to kill people. Okay? I don't kill people because they commit treason, they commit murder, they touch little children. Kill them for that. No issue there. You shouldn't kill people because they're gay. That's stupid. That is not a normal society would not do that. Saudi Arabia kills people because they're gay. And so in order to make the rest of the world, hey, don't notice that we did that. We're going to build a line city and then we're going to take over your PGA tournament. That's what we're going to do. It's good. It's called whitewashing.
From a logistical standpoint, it's not even going to work because if I want to go to one part of the city, I have to travel 170 miles.
Oh, who cares? It's fucking Halo. If they watch the video game Halo, who cares why it won't work? You're right. By the way, it could work. I'm not saying. Look, do you notice how this looks just like Halo?
It can't work.
Have you played the video game Halo, right?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Have you noticed that this looks exactly like Halo?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But we live in 2023. We don't live in.
Look, that's Halo. But do you see that's Halo? You're just looking at that. Look at that picture right there. That's just Halo. That's the video game Halo. That's all you're looking at. Except it's not. It's only 2-dimensional. That's what they're doing. It's fine. They're just virtue signaling, and they have the money to do it.
They have the money to do it. There you go.
And then they take a bone saw to Julian Khashoggi and they cut him up into little pieces. Don't pay attention to that. Look at our line city.
And how are they going to figure? I live in DC, like I said. So there was a huge deal when they killed him, they assassinated him because Washington Post is over here. So the fact that they think that we're going to forget magically that they did that to one of our journalists. Because it's a beautiful city. The pictures are beautiful, but I don't think they're actually going to be.
I'll go visit it. I think it's a cool idea that won't work, but I'll definitely go visit it once they waste a bunch of money on it. I think that's a great place. Just like I think it's a cool idea. It is one of these things where the reason why this happens, why you see stuff like this, is because of people believe their own news clippings. Does that make sense? Like one of the reasons why Joseph Stalin was such a terrible military commander is because his people were afraid to give him bad news. And so he always got incomplete, bad information. Well, one of the things that's happened is Vladimir Putin has the exact same problem. He keeps getting bad information from his intel people. His intel people told him he was going to have no trouble invading Ukraine. And now we're at 16, 17 months, and he still doesn't have the country. And they're 4 times larger than Ukraine is. So what's going on here is the same thing with Saudi Arabia. The people at the top in Saudi Arabia, they're hiring consulting firms that only tell them good things. Yes, sir. We'll take your money. No one is willing to tell the emperor they have no clothes on. Right. That's essentially what's going on. And so because of that situation, they're misinformed and they're coming up with ideas to try to make the rest of the world not recognize what's going on. And then they take a bone saw to a Washington Post journalist. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Just because these people don't know. Again, Vladimir Putin doesn't go on social media. He doesn't have a smartphone. He doesn't put his hands on a computer. He's just he's so out of touch with reality that he does stupid things like invade Ukraine. That is the same situation that's happening here in Saudi Arabia. There's the people who are making the decisions and control the money. They're not willing to do the work. It's a great example is Jerry Jones running the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones wants to pick the players, but isn't willing to do the work to study the players. And so the Cowboys haven't been to an NFC championship in 26 years because the decision makers don't have the authority. Does that make sense? That's essentially what happens. And whereas the Patriots kept going to Super Bowls because the guy who picked the players was also the guy who was willing to do the work, Bill Belichick. So that's a great example. In this case, in this situation, the people in our country, because we generally, not all the time, but most of the time, we reward people for being meritocratic. Like we reward the smartest people with the best jobs. Generally, again, not all the time, but generally, the people that you find in Washington who are those bureaucrats tend to be very smart individuals. Generally, because of that, we have a better run government than they do in Saudi Arabia. You can debate. If you guys, anybody want to debate me on this, you more than well can. The economic disparity in that country is far worse than it is here, and the same thing in Russia. They're like the idea that Russia's run better than the United States. You're a fucking moron. So yeah, I mean that's a situation. Why in a place like Russia, you're going to promote people who are closer to you and willing to do you more favors and keep you in power, rather than the smarter people. Does that make sense?
It's a crony government, pretty much.
Yeah, but it's the opposite of a meritocracy. The United States, it's not a complete meritocracy. Obviously, we have a democratically elected executive branch, but for the most part, it is a meritocracy. I'm gonna have the FBI director that's gonna make the FBI look the best because it makes me look better, so I can get reelected. So so for the most part, in the United States, we do have somewhat of a meritocracy, where they don't have quite the same thing in Russia or in Saudi Arabia or in China, for that matter. In China, the most important thing is loyalty to the party above your skill set.
Yeah. Don't you think that I have 2 more questions, by the way. This is one of the questions. Don't you think that Russia is just going to beat Ukraine down through numbers? They have what?
Don't you think Ukraine is going to beat down Russia through money?
I don't think so. If you kill enough people, If you kill enough Ukrainians, then
can drones kill people?
That's what I'm saying. Like, it almost comes to a point where it becomes like guerrilla warfare, where
but I don't think it is guerrilla warfare. I think Russia is getting killed 2-1 in this war. I think it's really bad. It's so much worse for Russia than they're reporting. Yes, Russia lost 1,500 tanks in the first couple of months. 1,500 tanks, and they've lost 400 fixed-wing aircraft. They're getting decimated. Yes, and what happens is,
once you get destroyed by a more powerful military actor, Ukraine is more powerful militarily right now because of
because of American money. Yes,
American money, right?
Correct.
Then what you resort to is guerrilla tactics. So won't Russia start? And Russia has 4 times as many soldiers as Ukraine. Won't they start resorting to guerrilla tactics?
Do they have 4 times as many soldiers? I don't know. I think they've lost a lot of their soldiers in this original wave, and it's really hurt them desperately. Also, the idea that Russia's denying that there's conscripting prisoners, that's proven. They are conscripting prisoners to fight in this war. These are not qualified people to fight in wars. You're better off having a smaller force that's more qualified than a bigger force full of incredibly corrupt individuals who are not motivated to fight.
That's true.
And the other thing is, once the U.S. starts selling T-70 or start selling tanks, one of the big what I'm saying, one of the big equalizers in this war is that technology, in a lot of cases, can outgun humans. And what I mean by that is, one Ukrainian with a $250,000 javelin, which the United States is sending hundreds of javelins, thousands of javelins. Yeah. These are anti-tank weapons.
Yeah.
Once they're sending these javelins, the javelin costs $250,000. The T-90 tank costs $4 million.
Yeah.
Do you see what you're doing there? That's a 16-to-1 ROI. The U.S. will send infinite javelins,
of course,
to Ukraine. Let's just do some math. You have an educated audience that understands math. Let's do some math here. The javelin costs $250,000. The T-90, which by the way cannot stand up to an M1 Abrams, the M1 Abrams A2 cannot. The T-90 has no chance against that tank. And Ukraine just got 31 M1 Abrams. When that javelin fires down into the T-90, it's a 1-to-0 kill ratio. Like there is no defense that the T-90 has, and it costs Ukraine $0. It costs NATO $250,000, and it costs Russia $4 million.
Mm-hmm.
Russia does not have the infrastructure to keep replacing their tanks. Russia, I believe, has 12,000 tanks at this point. Some of those tanks are like T-52s. The T-52s are basically useless in this war. They can't do anything. They're good against infantry, but T-52s can't stand up to any modern tank. They can't even stand up to a T-72. So the problem is the technology. So let's just consider if this entire war is fought with intel, drones, and javelins, I still think Ukraine can beat Russia in a war like that. And then the other problem is, and again, this is a narrative nobody wants to hear. When China turned their back on Russia and denounced the invasion, to me, that was the end. Russia should have retreated. Yeah. If China isn't going to assist you, you don't have the material or the GDP to continue to fight this war. Here's the worst part. Let's just say Russia figures out a way to get out of this war. Either they keep Donbass, or let's just say by some miracle they take Kiev, and they won the whole thing. You told the entire world, you, Vladimir Putin, for 2 months that you weren't going to invade Ukraine, and then you invaded Ukraine. That's a great idea when it comes to statecraft and military strategy. That's a fucking horrible idea when it comes to diplomacy. Yeah. Who is ever going to sign another treaty with Vladimir Putin from this point forward? So since no one's going to work with Russia because of what's happening, what happens is the two main countries that do work with Russia, which is India and China, you could throw South Africa in there too, but they're not as big. Those countries now realize we're the only game in town. So in order for us to get trade deals, we're going to need a little bit more favorable trade deals from Russia. And so what's going to happen is India and China are now going to start taking advantage of Russia, and the Russian people will suffer. Yeah. The Russian people will suffer because of this war. The Russian people will suffer because of their negative GDP growth, and the Russian people are going to suffer because China and India are now going to take advantage of Russia. Russia has taken 3 dildos and shoved it up their ass at the same time, bro. I'm trying to be as nice as I can. They have triple fucked it. They have triple fucked themselves because of this situation. But this is this will go down Please record me, call me out on this. I can't wait to 10 years when I turn out to be right. This will go down as the single worst military operation in the last 100 years, what Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
I don't think I think Russia has too much.
By the way, I'm not anti-Russia. I'm not anti-Russian. I just think that what Russia did was very, very poorly calculated.
Same here. I'm just viewing it from who's the best, who's the worst, what strategy. I'm not really on either side.
I'm just extremely familiar with American hardware versus Russian hardware because being in U.S. intel, that's the first thing you study. We don't study the Chinese. We don't study the fucking Japanese. The first thing we study when you join a U.S. intel is Russian MiGs and Sukhois, SA-7s. S-400s. This is the first thing we study. The T-72, the T-90. It's the first thing we study when you join the U.S. military and you get into the intel shop. We study the Russian arsenal, and I'm very, very familiar with the Russian arsenal versus the U.S. arsenal, and they don't compare. And the gap is getting wider. It's not getting narrower. And so as the gap gets wider, Russia has to depend more and more on the nuclear threat.
Yeah,
and that's what we're seeing.
I think what's going to happen is that Russia's still going to continue to lose soldiers and money, and they're going to continue to throw bodies at this constantly, and tens of thousands of men on both sides are going to die constantly, right? And
yes, agreed.
It's going to get to a point where the bloodbath is so stupid and so dumb that they're going to have to either sign a peace treaty or they're going to start doing tactical nukes. But tactical nukes are so frowned upon that I don't know if Russia's that crazy to actually try to do that. So I think it's going to be negative.
The thing about the tactical nukes is that then it's all over for everyone.
I don't think
do you understand? There's one tactical nuke that hits Kiev, and there's 70 tactical nukes that are responded to that hit Russia.
Exactly.
If Kiev gets hit by a tactical nuke, then Moscow, it will be glowing the next day. I just don't think people understand. Russia might get an ICBM over to the US. Most likely they can't at this point. The US has all of their ICBMs will hit Russia with 100% accuracy. Right. So that threat doesn't really work. But if somebody's crazy enough, maybe that's what happens. What I really like was this idea of just paying Wagner, a couple $2 billion and being like, if you can take over Moscow, we'll just give you a bunch of money. And then, so what happens is the only way for Russia to defend themselves is for them to nuke their own country. And at that point, the entire Russian populace turns on Putin. That's the only way. You remember when Wagner starts going north from Ukraine back towards Moscow, and then the Russians start sending helicopters to fight the Wagner group. Do you remember when this is happening a couple months ago?
Yeah.
At that point, if Wagner gets to Moscow and starts invading the city, the only way for Russia to defend themselves, because their entire army is in Ukraine, is for them to then literally tactically nuke their own country.
Wasn't he the dude that exploded in the plane magically? The plane magically exploded by itself last week. No. Was that a different?
No, Prigozhin. I believe he's still alive. Yeah, I don't think Prigozhin's dead.
Did his plane crash, or he's still alive?
Yevgeny Prigozhin death.
His chef, his personal chef that he started beefing.
Oh wow, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
he died in a plane crash 2 days ago. I'm sorry. He magically died. It's hilarious, guys. I'm sorry. What the fuck? Bro, this is the funniest shit. I'm sorry. I've had a really busy week. I should have kept up on this. That is hilarious, Benito. This is even more proving my point. Do you remember the last person who ran against Putin? You remember what happened to them? They ran into a balcony and then they ran over the bitch. Did you see that? He just accidentally fell off a balcony. This is hilarious, bro.
So many of his generals are magically dying and magically falling off of roofs.
Yes,
like that.
Of course.
It's going to, and his plane blew up. And it was so stupid, right? And he's going to start running out of people that are on his side, and it's going to come to a point where he's going to have to sign a peace treaty. I think that's the only way.
Have you seen one of the parliament members openly defied Putin, which never happens?
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, that never happens.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened recently. I forgot the guy's name. There's these 2 billionaires that stood up and started openly defying Putin. I'm sure they'll be dead here in a week or so. But it's just that tells you things are really falling apart if you got to that point. And hey, you know what? Another great case for cryptocurrency. Because of cryptocurrency, I guarantee you those people who are crossing Putin, I guarantee you they've converted their billions into crypto and they're getting it out of the country. And otherwise they wouldn't be able to do that. I guarantee you they're doing that. I guarantee you there's banks in Geneva, Switzerland, safety deposit boxes with fucking thumbnails, those wallets, those encrypted wallets in there, and those things are guarded. So I guarantee you that's what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And so it goes back to the original discussion about cryptocurrency. And if there wasn't cryptocurrency, then these billionaires, these oligarchs would not be able to get their money out of Russia, which is essentially what's happening. So the only thing I'm saying is this, right? Did we have to put a gun to Sweden's head to get them to join NATO?
No, not really.
But did you have to put a gun to Ukraine's head to keep them out of it?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Did they build a wall in 1961 to keep the people in West Germany from going into Russia?
Mm-hmm.
Or did they have to build a wall to keep the people from East Germany from leaving?
Yeah.
You guys can do the math. Keep telling me I'm wrong.
It's true. Yeah.
Russia, it's not that Russia's bad or good. Russia doesn't deserve to win because Russia had the ability to push its weight around to these other, like Eastern Germany and Poland and places like this, because they were a massive superpower. And now they're not. Now they have a $1.7 trillion GDP. They have a GDP smaller than Italy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about what's right or wrong. It's about what you can get away with. Again, a guy who is worth several $billion can have several girlfriends. A guy who lives in a trailer park, maybe he can't have several girlfriends. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When a guy's worth $100 million and he cheats on his wife, they tend to get away with it more. Am I wrong? Tell me if I'm wrong, guys. If I'm wrong, just like write in the comments that I'm wrong about this. But if a guy cheats on his wife and he has a prenup, or like, he tends to get away with a guy who's really wealthy tends to get away with cheating on his girlfriend more. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but he can get away with it. A country that has a huge GDP and a large military, they can get away with pushing around other countries. The problem is Russia still thinks they have that, and they don't.
Yeah, what they should have done.
So they've miscalculated.
They should have done what China did. They should have focused more on their internal.
That's exactly right.
GDP.
That's correct.
Exactly.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. China figured out multiple ways of keeping their populace employed, and Russia did not. Russia just came up with oil. Yeah. Russia exports four things. They export caviar, vodka. They export U.S. military, or they export military armaments, and they export cyber terrorism. Those are the only four things that they export out of the country. And they could have. There's so many other things they could do, huh? Oil. No, I said petroleum. I'm sorry. I apologize. Yeah, I meant to say petroleum, caviar, and vodka. The U.S. military stuff and cyber terrorism. Those are the only things they export out of that country. Like flat Earth exists 100% because of Russia. Russia made up flat Earth and caused the uneducated populace of the United States to start believing that shit.
I believe you. Which is crazy. Okay, last question. I know that you did an interview with Lika Ospiva, and she was talking about how NFTs are becoming more popular and people in general don't want to live their lives in the real world. They want to. I live in cryptocurrency, right?
Yeah.
But, I live in the NFT world. I live in the world and everything. But what can you explain the importance of living in the real world, of going to the gym, of learning how to talk to people, all these things? Even though cryptocurrency is very powerful, I love cryptocurrency more than anyone else, right? Even though cryptocurrency is more powerful, I still go to my CrossFit. I have to go to CrossFit after this. Really, I still have to learn how to talk to people. I still have to be able to have this conversation. Even if you look at my videos from like 2-3 years ago, my conversation skills were not that good. I just improved in that. I read books all the time. I'm reading Sapiens all the time, right? I'm reading Sapiens.
Love it. I'm making my girlfriend. So we're watching. Yeah, there you go. One of the best. Me and Dan were talking yesterday, actually. One of the Sapiens, my girlfriend and I were watching the show 1923, which is about the settling of Montana back in the 1920s. And there's a scenes where these Europeans are in Africa, and she's asking all these like geopolitical questions. And my girlfriend's 21 years old, and I was trying to explain it all to her, and none of it made sense to her. So I said, you have to. The book I recommended was *Sapiens* by Yuval Noah Harari. And me as I'm a politically conservative person, recommending a book by an atheist homosexual. Who people are like, I can't believe you read that. They hate the fact that I read that book. That is one of the best books I've ever read. Sapiens is a tremendous book. I don't care what you believe about. People are like, I can't believe he's Jewish and blah, blah, blah. It's like, Jewish has nothing to do with it. That man is a genius. He is one of the greatest thinkers of our time. I don't care if you're conservative or liberal. Yuval Noah Harari does a better job of explaining how society came to be than anyone I have ever read in my entire life.
So what is the importance of living outside of the digital world, living in the real world? Because I know
Yeah,
that leads to some of the reasons why people, they don't want to improve themselves. They just want to
yeah,
believe conspiracy theories, and that's why my life is shit. Instead of you
yes.
just actually working on things. And I'm actually like I guess what you would call a liberal, but I'm a liberal from 5 years ago. The Democrat Party has
Yeah,
lost.
yeah. I'm with you, bro. I'm a Democrat from 20 years ago, which makes me alt-right. I'm a Democrat from 20 years ago. It makes me alt-right now, right? Because I believe in like, you're exactly right, bro.
And stuff, and that makes me a horrible person now. It's so
Yeah,
insane.
it's so funny.
Anyways, yes.
Yeah.
What's the importance of living in the real world, living in the real life, improving yourself
Um,
constantly?
so you were adapted for it. I mean, that's the main reason. Like when we talk about people being healthy, and people living like satisfying life, because that's what I would like. I would love for everyone. I'm so fortunate that I get to do something for a living that I'm excited about. Like, for instance, I know you're just starting your podcast, right? But we're going to take clips of this discussion and we're going to put them on my show. We're going to put them on we're going to make money off of it, right? We're going to use it to generate leads, which is going to give us clients, which is going to come down our funnel. And that's what we're going to do it. So I have this incredible ability, or this incredible privilege of doing something I love as a living, and then making a really good living from it. And so that's what I would recommend for other people. That makes me very happy. The thing that I do for work is also the thing that brings me enjoyment. That is right there. That's the intersection of happiness to me, is doing those two things together. I have not been on a vacation that was not business related in 25 years. I have not been on a single one. Every business vacation I go on.
I've seen your Instagram. You're all over the world. You've been
Yeah,
on
but the thing is, you see my Instagram because it's all content. I'm making, that's work. Content is work. Right.
So
I'm not saying it's not fun. I'm not saying it's not fun. It's definitely fun going to Jamaica. But my point is, everything, I go to Jamaica because I get an ROI from going to Jamaica, or going to Mexico, or going to a bikini competition. Yeah. So when I go back to the thing I was saying before, the adaptation for you as a human is to continue to achieve goals. And as you achieve goals, you get regular dopamine and serotonin hits, and your life is just more fulfilling. Mm-hmm. Another adaptation, I will tell you, is achieving goals with other people. That's incredible. That's the football team. That's the military general. That's the guy who runs the CEO of the business. Achieving goals with other people, to me, like getting to a point where I get rich and I can get my people in my company also rich, is the best feeling. To the point where I'm willing to sacrifice my time and resources to make other people rich. That is the best feeling in the world. Let me tell you, nothing beats that. That is the best. So living in the real world, what do I have to do? Well, I need to have enough energy. I'm 45 years old. I don't think I'm slowing down. I have enough energy in order to be able to do that. So what I do that, I work on my physique. I have a good diet. So right, that's what the real world brings me. And then what do we, I want to go out and talk to women, like real women in real life. I get a dopamine hit from that. It actually feels good that women find me attractive. It feels good that I can talk to the opposite sex, right? Yeah. When I do things that are virtual, what'll happen is I'll get this short-term dopamine hit, but my body was not adapted for it. So I don't go out very much. I get vitamin D deficiency, right? My muscles start to atrophy. My social skills start to atrophy. My facial expressions become weird and uncalibrated because I'm not used to seeing people face to face, which is why I love Zoom so much, by the way. So that's what happens. That's why it's so important to exist in the real world, because you were adapted for it. 178 million years of mammalian evolution, or is it 78 million? I may have got that wrong. 3 million years of hominid evolution, 300,000 years of Homo sapien evolution. Mm-hmm. Those things and those adaptations during that entire period, you were living outside, you were living off the land, you were eating organic food, you were competing with other males for attention with females, you were competing for higher status, higher amounts of sexual selection. And so since your ancestors did that
too, right? I think there's like 15 other hominids that we killed or ate, or we
so that so we have the anthropological record shows 15 other hominids that were on this planet. There could have been up to 21, but the main point is they're all dead. Yes. And we're alive. Ask yourself that question. If 15 guys go into a room and one of them comes out covered in blood, what probably happened? Okay. We ate them and we fucking killed them and we outbred them. That's what happened. That's why 2% of Europeans Europeans have 2% Neanderthal DNA is because we very unkindly had sex with them, right? we took what we wanted. And so because of that, that's why this species has so many people. And there's 400,000 elephants on this planet and 8 billion humans. You ask yourself the question why that is. And so because when you have that understanding, you're like, what is the key to happiness? For me, what I've seen is the key to happiness is to do things that get you closer to your ancestral past, because happiness is the key for happiness is it's the reward center in your brain, and the reward center in your brain is going to reward those things that aided in survival in the past. That's why when I talk to my girlfriend, she's like, what do you want? Do you want me to take you to an expensive dinner or somewhere? She's like, I want to go camping. I want to be under the stars. You want to know who's probably under the stars? Looking at the stars, her ancestors were. It's very likely she's Native American. She's part Native American. That very likely that's what her ancestors were doing. So that's the reason why. So when you ask, why is it important? I will tell you, your likelihood of being happier is much greater if you do things that your ancestors probably did to aid in survival.
Okay, perfect.
Accomplish goals, protect the tribe. Yep.
Yes, I have to go. Thank you, Michael, for this. Can you give people where they can find you, your Instagram, Twitter, all that information?
Yeah, I will. Let me say this first off. Obviously you're in MOA, so I would have done it anyway, but I'll do anyone's podcast. I love doing other people's podcasts. I have this one girl, she's like 16 years old. She has no followers whatsoever. And I gave her 3 hours of just fire. I love doing other people's podcasts. So anybody who's watching this, if you want me to come on your podcast, I definitely will. That's the first thing I want to say. The second thing I want to say is, if you want to debate me on anything I was talking about today, I know a lot of people are like, no, Michael, those directed energy weapons, please, let's go. Let's fucking go. I would love to do that. Or if you have a friend of yours who wants to do it. I had a family member who wanted to debate me on, I can't remember, like vaccines causing autism. And I was just like, and my mother said, please don't do it because you're just going to embarrass him. Like, that's one of the things that I do this for a living. But the main thing I want to go over is, number one, if you guys want to check me out on the Michael Sartain podcast, a lot of the podcast is mainly on the concept of evolutionary psychology. If you guys want to check me out at MOA Mentoring, it's a self-improvement course. We only deal with what science helps us understand and statistics helps us understand are things that work. We don't come from it from an experimental or like theoretical point of view. We come from it from a scientific point of view of how to use evolutionary psychology to describe networking as an evolutionary adaptation. So that's what the course is. Right now we have 600 people in the course. It's going really well. There's about 2,000 people in our free course right now. And a lot of them are joining the main course. So if you guys are interested in that, you can go to moamentoring.com, or you can hit me up and I'll give you access to the school server. And our school server has the list of all 30 of those books that I mentioned before. It has, it'll have like this podcast will be on there. The schedule will be on there. 30 Instagram testimonials, because I recommend people fix their social media. And then, several other resources that are on there. So you guys can check me out everywhere at Michael Sartain. Okay,
perfect. Well, thank you again for this interview. It was really good. Let's do it again. Definitely.
All right, man. I'm going to see you in an hour.
Probably yes.
Okay, I'll see you on the group calls. That's Fight Club. You guys are not supposed to know about that. You're not supposed to know about that. We don't talk about Fight Club. Fight Club starts in an hour. Stay tuned. All right, man. Take care, brother.
Thank you.